If you thought student loans were predatory, please watch this video because what I'm going to describe to you makes student loans look like actual charity. In this video, I'm going to explain the mechanics behind what is, in my opinion, the biggest example of corporate veterinary greed and unfair business practices that I am currently aware of in all of veterinary medicine. I'm also going to talk about my own experience dealing with this atrociously unfair business practice, and hopefully after making this video, I will still have a career. All right, let's get into it. Last week, a post on Instagram from veterinary internal medicine specialist Dr. Bradley Bishop made the rounds throughout the veterinary community, showing two lovely examples of residency contracts from two different corporate vet conglomerates: Blue Pearl Vet Hospital, owned by the Mars Corporation, and Thrive Pet Healthcare, owned by a private equity firm called TSG Consumer Partners. You know, mom and pop vet clinics. The shared post detailed terms of what is called a return of service clause. A return of service clause, as it pertains to veterinarians, refers to an employee, in this case the vet completing a residency, being obligated to continue working for the company that trained them for a period of time after their residency is over. The particular contracts highlighted in this post caused quite a bit of discussion in the veterinary community, and for good reason. While the concept itself seems fair, when you dig into the details, you see how insanely predatory and frankly greedy these contracts really are towards veterinarians. Let's review an example of a return of service agreement, the same one highlighted by Dr. Bradley Bishop on his Instagram a few days ago. This one is from a company called Thrive, which I guess they mean ironically. This contract is publicly available on the VIRMP website. That's the vet version of the Match website. You can go there without an account and find this, but I'll post a link in the description as well to make it easier for you to review yourself. I've got the relevant parts of the contract right here. Let's review this contract and the return of service items here. You'll see the words residency term and post-residency term used here. The residency term refers to the 3-year residency itself, and the post-residency term refers to the immediate 3 years after residency. It states, you agree that if you terminate your employment with the company, Thrive, for any reason, or the company terminates your employment with cause during the residency term or post-residency term, you will reimburse the company as follows. Termination date in year 1 of the residency term, $175,000. In year 2 of the residency term, $350,000. In year 3 of the residency term until the start of the post-residency term, $525,000. In other words, you better not quit this residency once you start, for any reason. Now, just so you understand what this means, say you start the residency and on day 1 something happens, like, God forbid, a family tragedy or any possible change in circumstance you could possibly think of that makes doing a residency for the next 3 years completely untenable for you and your family. If that happens, you now owe Thrive $125,000 day 1. Or let's say you're in year 3 of your residency, the first day of year 3. So like month 25 out of 36. Your mentor gets fired for harassment of an employee, or the clinic gets struck by lightning, or maybe all the attending clinicians at your residency hospital quit to pursue other opportunities. In all these circumstances, you are, according to the language in this contract, very likely on the hook for $525,000 to pay Thrive, all due to circumstances that are completely outside of your control. And as you can see, the post-residency payback amounts pyramid back down year by year. Now, the idea here is that the company that's training you is investing a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of money in doing so for 3 years, so they want to make sure that their investment in you isn't totally wasted. They're also creating a valuable product in you that they expect to get a return on by you working for them after your residency. But let's consider a few key points here. Key point number 1, the contract itself mentions how these numbers are impossible to calculate. So they're basically saying, in so many words, these numbers are arbitrary, but you agree that they feel right. Like, this feels like the right number that you should pay us. I guess we can just make up numbers now? Like, what world are we living in where a company can just arbitrarily decide that it costs $525,000 to train a resident for 2 years and 1 day? And if said resident has to stop due to a mental health crisis, they then have to endure this financial stress as well. I'm sorry, what part of this is thriving exactly? You can't make this stuff up. The second key point here is the fact that the resident being trained is not making commission or production bonuses off of the cases they see. Now, in case you didn't know, interns and residents earn a flat salary that nowadays is anywhere between about $30,000 to $80,000 a year, depending on your year of training, the location, the company, if you're in academia versus private practice, etc. So all the cases a resident sees and manages during their 60 to 80 hour plus work week, mind you, you. Everything they produce as a doctor does not come back to them through a commission bonus like it does most every other vet. So the company or hospital they work for gets to keep all of that extra money they typically have to pay out to a doctor for their commission bonuses. This equates to easily multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in gross receipts. Now, given what I know residents are capable of and how hard they work, including off hours when mentors oftentimes aren't even in the building, mind you, I would conservatively estimate that a resident covers their salary in most cases in about 3 to 4 months out of the year. After, say, month 4, every single line item they generate goes to the hospital they work at. Now, you would think that this financial edge that a hospital has with a resident would be enough to justify this cost to train a resident. But oh no, if you're Thrive, you need an extra $500,000 on top of that. Or if you're Blue Pearl, as was highlighted by Dr. Bishop's Instagram post, you apparently need $225,000. But that seems like a bargain compared to $525,000. I guess Blue Pearl values a resident at half of what Thrive does. Not sure how that works out. Key point number 3 here is that your residency mentor could get fired, quit, and change jobs, and your residency could cease to exist for a number of reasons. And then all of a sudden, poof, through no fault of your own, you now owe a multi-million-dollar private equity firm a 6-figure payout. But the person that leaves you high and dry, the actual mentor, they don't have to pay or do anything. Your professional and financial future is literally at the mercy of someone you don't really know outside of an interview. And by the way, in case you're wondering if this is like a hypothetical scenario, this happens. I know people this has happened to. I know actual real people whose programs completely evaporated in the middle of their residency for these exact reasons. And if you're under a contract that has this sort of a language in it, how would you feel being exposed like that legally? Key point number 4, when you finish your residency and enter the post-residency period, you have to work for the same company, and they very often will dictate where you work. They just send you to one of their hospitals. Say you want to move closer to family after your residency is done. Too bad. You're going in the opposite direction because the company tells you where to work. Did you find a nice place to live and work after residency with good schools for your kids to go to? That's cool. You're not going there because you'd have to pay your company $500,000 to leave. Now, I will say at least these companies are willing to provide example contracts openly on the VIRMP website. I'm not able to find other companies' terms like VCA, MedVet, or NVA and other companies on here, but I would have to assume their terms fall somewhere in this range. But let me know in the comments if you've heard otherwise. If this seems like a sore subject to me, it's because I've had to deal with my own version of this predatory bullshit during my own residency. Back in 2014, I had just started the second year of my residency. Came back from a conference in Italy to find a stack of paper on my desk that, as it turns out, was a new contract that my mentor, who owned the practice, wanted me to sign. He said, quote, "This contract was a lot better than my original contract, which had no language whatsoever regarding service agreements and payback penalties, nothing of the sort." And that made sense. Our clinic at the time was a startup hospital, completely from scratch, and there was no identifiable position for me once I finished. Lo and behold, I start reading the contract, and what I see is language that is almost identical to what I just showed you. At no point had this been discussed with me prior to agreeing to a residency, and I spent that night really stressing out about the prospect of having to pay somebody $300,000, that was the number at that time, if this startup hospital failed in some way, and I ultimately decided I wasn't going to sign it. This is not the last time I was pressured into making a financial commitment to work for this company after I was done, and this in turn gave me all the information I needed to know that I needed to work somewhere else once I was done with my residency. The threat of this looming over me for the next 2 years really affected me, to say the least. I started having panic attacks regularly at home, and I went to work every day wondering if I was going to be fired for simply not agreeing to a new contract that was never shown to me before I started. Now, one nagging question I've had about this contract is, where did this contract language come from? I've heard rumors of a particular contract lawyer responsible for all of this, but I can't confirm those suspicions, so I'm not going to name the person as much as I would like to. I would love to talk with them or someone else who knows the history behind this and just ask them, how do you think this is fair? Given everything that a resident does for your hospital and everything that goes on with this industry in regards to mental health and how insanely difficult the process of specializing is, why are you doing this to people? Why are you doing this to fellow veterinarians? Many of the higher ups in these giant companies are former veterinarians. You see DVMs in their list of credentials. I love to ask one of them, do you not feel bad going after an employee, a fellow vet, for $525,000 because they had to quit? You mean to tell me if someone suffered a family tragedy that meant that they can't work 60 to 80 hour work weeks anymore and they decided quitting was their best option, you wouldn't feel awful about using your company and all of your company's resources to try to extract $525,000 from them? I do not understand how this is legal, A, B, widely accepted practice in our industry, and C, how these companies are able to get away with these terms. We have to do better than this. Guys, we have to do better than this. I've been wanting to make this video for a while. You know, you get into this profession, veterinary medicine, thinking of one goal, and that's helping animals. That's why everybody gets into it. You never think in a million years, or should I say a 500,000 years, that vets would do this sort of thing to one another, or let alone to you. You know, vets get a pass in society because we help animals. So, you know, we must be amazing people, right? But the truth is, vets too often treat each other worse than anyone else treats us. Thank you for watching my video. If you have any experience with this issue at all, please feel free to comment below. I'd love to start a discussion about this problem and bring more awareness to it. If you're a vet and you've experienced problems with either non-competes or return of service clauses, leave me a shout out. I always like hearing experiences from other vets who have faced similar challenges. Don't forget to like and subscribe too if you liked what you see today, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace out.